Evening all. We'll kick off. First of all, thank you all for coming. What a great crowd. It's so great to see so many people here. I think the fire exits, so you know, are there, over there, and I guess one on the board we came in. For those that don't know me, my name is Jeremy Law, so I am a resident of Wimbledon, have been for over 10 years, and I'm also part of the committee of Friends of Wimbledon. Thank you to all the people who worked on putting this evening together, and the volunteers who distributed the leaflets, which I think is part of the course of the many people here, which is fantastic. So I'm just going to speak for a couple of minutes about Friends of Wimbledon, and then quickly talk through the running order, and we'll jump into the meat of the evening. So the Friends of Wimbledon was set up in December 2015. A small group of Wimbledon residents met to look at the actions to promote the awareness across Rail 2 and the whole southern hub in Wimbledon. I think we went on from looking at that alone to wanting to provide a voice for the local community in addressing all sorts of issues around major developments that might impact all of us in the room today. And so it has broadened a lot, and it isn't just Crossrail 2 that we're looking at, but we want to preserve, protect. Of course I can, yes. So, slowly and distinctly, I will do. So, that must be my Irish voice. So, equally, we're very keen that the many thriving local businesses continue to trade with minimum disruption, and the town centre remains a very vibrant place. We distributed the leaflets because we felt that the council, whilst doing some activity to promote the consultation around the Masterplan and quite a lot of stuff on Twitter, we felt that actually it didn't really get to the doorsteps of Wimbledon residents. So that's why we chose to distribute the leaflets and we're having a meeting tonight. And it's great that the council have come along to join us, and we'll talk about that in a second. Our aim is to get people to engage with, read, and to understand the Masterplan and to respond. So our organisation, or any organisation, won't be successful in responding to the Masterplan. It's about every single person in the room responding. And we can't help that. We can help inform, we can help provide views, but unless each and every one of you respond to the Masterplan, there won't be a full response and a representation of the community going back to the council. So that's a little bit about the Friends. If you are not a member of the Friends and you want to be, and you want to sign up to our mailing lists, there are forms at the back of the room which you'll be able to do at the end of the meeting, and you'll be able to fill out. Or alternatively, you can go to wimbledontowncentre.com and do it there. So this evening, the running order of events is going to be a very quick update on the neighbourhood plan. So Rob Cowan is here, who is a member of the neighbourhood plan group as well as a member of the Friends of Wimbledon. Two slightly different groups, but actually two really important points. And as he talks through what the neighbourhood plan is, you'll understand why we wanted it spoken about today in the context of the Masterplan. Secondly, Gay Benapal, who's the Secretary of Friends, is going to speak briefly on the latest update we've had on Crossrail 2. But the meat of the evening is all about the Future Merton Masterplan. And from the council, we have Paul McGarry, who is head of Future Merton, James McGinley, who is Assistant Director for Sustainable Communities, and Tara Butler, who is Deputy Head of Future Merton. So we will hand over and they'll talk to us for about 20 minutes, very much looking forward in terms of what the Masterplan is, and then we will open up to questions from the floor. So what would be great is throughout the few quick presentations and then the substantial bit on the Masterplan, if you could hold your questions to the end, that would be really, really helpful. In terms of house rules for the evening, I guess, is about listening, understanding, and asking questions to help inform your individual response, and for us to help inform the views that we'll pass out as Friends of Wimbledon. After the evening, once it's over, to be successful, as I say, you'll all need to respond. Also, you will notice we are, Merton.TV are filming, but they are filming from the back, and they will not film anybody's faces, so don't be alarmed, and they will only be done from the back, and obviously you'll be able to see all of us at the front. Please respect the speakers, and I guess as I kind of take the floor and ask for questions, I think, please try hard at one person at a time and allow people to respond. So we'll quickly kick off with Rob, first of all, to talk about the enabling plan.
Thank you, Jeremy. When we tell people we're working on a neighbourhood plan for Wimbledon town, they say, oh, you mean the Merton's local plan that's being revised? We say, no, not the local plan. Then they say, oh, there's the master plan that the council's consulting on. We say, no, not that. And then they say, oh, yeah, I saw the Wimbledon Society plan for the town centre. And we say, no, not that. And then they come up with other vision statements that other local groups are working on. And we think this is a really crowded field, and if we're going to convince people that a neighbourhood plan is worth doing, that's our job. Whether or not Crossrail 2 happens, there's going to be an enormous amount of development pressure in Wimbledon town centre, which could be brilliant, really good for Wimbledon, or it could be really bad, or anywhere in between. And with the history and people in the room, obviously, we're thinking, well, actually, we can't just hope that it's going to happen. We need to work on it. And the difference that will make the difference, part of the difference between success and failure, will be, first of all, if all these people doing various plans, putting in an enormous amount of effort, an enormous amount of really creative thinking, if they get their act together and work together. And also what it will depend on is what they're in the statutory plan. Because when it comes to the planning commission or the council appropriate things as appeal, really what counts is what is in a statutory planning policy. And anything isn't, doesn't carry a lot of weight. So what has statutory planning policy? Well, the Merton's local plan does, so that's really important to get right. The master plan doesn't. It has the status of supplementary planning document, which can be very useful and influential, but it's not statutory planning policy. And none of the other things have that statutory status, which means have a status in law at planning applications and appeal. But the neighbourhood plan does, and that's why we think it's worth doing a neighbourhood plan. Because the government has decided that that neighbourhood planning is important, so they've given it them this status. They want communities to be involved. They know that they're more likely to be involved if they're given the status of actually being able to make proper planning policy, rather than just being consultants. And they've also given funding for neighbourhood planning. So we haven't had any funding yet from the government, but at a later stage we will be applying for funding. It's quite a long, complicated process, but at a later stage we'll be able to get funding for professional help to support the process of neighbourhood planning. And the neighbourhood plan needs to go through because there's funding and status for it, it needs to be a proper plan. So it needs to be produced by a reasonably representative group of people. It needs to have solid planning evidence of what it's talking about. It needs to have well worked out policies, which go to a planning inspector who reviews them and comments on them, and then that has to apply for. And then at the end of the process, there's a referendum. What could possibly go wrong? Only one referendum. So far, we've been working for a year on this, and learning. None of us know anything about or knew anything about neighbourhood planning from the start. We now know a little bit, but we're learning slowly. But we've done some of the difficult stuff. We've got a constitution. We've drawn a draft boundary for the area, which is basically the town centre and its immediate residential community. We've got a database of supporters, and we hold regular monthly meetings. And we're beginning to work on, we've got a vision statement, we're beginning to work on policies that we want, looking at all the things that the various groups in Wimbledon are talking about, and thinking how do those be made into Merton's local plan, because that's not how local plans work. So the possibility at the neighbourhood level is to have much more detail to fill in the gaps that are a lot of the important things like design, and height of buildings, which you need evidence on and thinking about to justify the policies. And the neighbourhood plan can be put in more detail than a local plan can. We have monthly meetings. It's a long, hard process, but it can be fun. And whether the neighbourhood plan is a really good plan and whether it's fun doing it will depend on how many people get involved in the process. If there's anyone in the room who would like to, and we'd love to see you at our open monthly meetings, either see me afterwards or go to the website that's on the leaflet that's been handed around. But we'd love to see you and get involved in the process because we think it's really important to Wimbledon.
Very good, thank you, Rob. And now over again, we give an update on Crossrail 2.
Good evening. It has been quite quiet, the news about Crossrail 2, so I'm very grateful to the spokeswoman at Crossrail 2 who has given me some information to read out to you and to bring you up to date. The independent affordability review on Crossrail 2 has delivered its interim report to the second week stage and the mayor, and that happened at the end of July. The next thing that needs to happen is that the Secretary of State and the Mayor need to agree on the route, and then the independent affordability review will inform the government's comprehensive spending review in 2019. While all that's happening, at the same time, the Crossrail 2 team continues to assess the alternative options for a Crossrail 2 station at Wimbledon, in a way that would minimise the impacts on the town centre. It's still the case that no decisions have been made regarding a preferred Crossrail 2 route or a preferred option for Wimbledon. Once the decision has been made, then Crossrail 2 will proceed to a formal public consultation. We keep in close contact with Crossrail 2 to foster the impact or to foster the interests of residents and to promote the views of residents' the impact of residents' views on Crossrail 2 and its design process. And we keep in contact with Crossrail 2 so that we have first-hand information to share with friends at Wimbledon Town Centre when there is an update on the scheme or proposals available for public consultation. I'm assured that the delay on Crossrail 1 makes no difference whatsoever to work proceeding on Crossrail 2 or on the timescales because they're completely different and separate projects. And one final point that I'd alert you to, and Friends of Wimbledon Town Centre will keep you informed about this. You had a leaflet through your door. Transport for London recently published a consultation on a new tramlink extension between Sutton and Merton. One of the three options proposes to serve Wimbledon Station. The consultation closes on the 6th of January. We'll be emailing all those signed up to us to share information about the proposals and drop-in events organised by Transport for London and to give you information about the consultation process. If you're not signed up, you can sign up on the door on the way out and we'll be happy to keep you in touch. Thank you.
A good plug from Gay, just saying if you haven't signed up and you could sign up again, that would be great. I think also something I'll be asking later on is that if everybody in this room went away later on this evening and over the next few days and got their neighbours and their friends, another maybe 5 people each, to join up and sign up to Friends of Wimbledon, we'd suddenly, really start to build a large swell of interest. So first of all, I'm going to hand over now to the council. And, James McGinley is going to be the first to speak.
Thanks, Jeremy. Firstly, I'd like to thank everybody in the room for inviting myself and my colleagues along here this evening. I'm James McGarry, I'm Assistant Director for Sustainable Communities, and that means that I've got the privilege of managing the team that works on the regeneration of the borough, also the planning service, so the planning applications coming to assess those, and also the council's property portfolio. I think one thing that I'd like to say that I think one of the things that myself and my team will do is passion for producing an environment where people feel that they actually have a stake in their local community. And I know that's a very easy thing for me to say, but I think passion for a place is important in our job. And I think we recognise that places all have their own unique character. Wimbledon Town Centre, 40 hectares, and in Wimbledon money, I'm told that's about 1,500 tennis courts. It's a place that undoubtedly is a successful town centre. And we're in a very interesting time where town centres are under a great deal of pressure, but I think that also is one of the opportunities as to how we can plan for the future. The Wimbledon Masterplan is about how we guide and support proactively development through the next decade. It may be something that is synonymous with Crossrail 2, and while I think I'd like to say that we started off on this journey thinking, well, how do we respond to the Crossrail 2 plans? One of the things that we're acutely aware of is that town centres live and breathe and evolve, where major railway lines come along. And what the team has been looking to do is to say, how do we make sure that we get good growth in Wimbledon? I think that we recognise that it's a town that's evolved, and one of my colleagues will take me through the evolution of the town centre in a bit more detail. So I think it places some context of how the planning system tries to adapt. But at its heart, it's how do residents live in an area, how do businesses operate, and how do we make sure that the blend between businesses, residents, shops produce a good place rather than a place that there's opposition or there's conflict between those uses. Now, I'm not claiming that in any way we can make all of that go away, but what we've done is we've published a document which is trying to set out what are existing policies and how we want to interpret those moving forward so that we get good quality growth, but recognising that Wimbledon in its place in Merton, and Merton in its place in London is a place that is part of a world city that's growing. So the team's passion, and one of the reasons we're really come and speak to as many residents, businesses and other groups that want to hear our voices, is that the only way we're going to get that is if we have some kind of consensus on what the future looks like. So what we want to do this evening is take you through that journey. I think it started with an ideas competition, which is a series of workshops, and I think that that's helped with the evolution of the document we presented today. It may have been that if the Crossrail 2 timeline was one that had been in line with the original proposition, we'd be talking about a massive plan of responses to Crossrail 2. We recognise that we need to carry on and make sure that we get good quality growth in the town centre, regardless of whether Crossrail 2 comes along. I think it's a major commercial hub. It's quite unique in that it's a commercial hub that lives cheap by jowl with housing, and has a really passionate local residents who want to make sure that we get the best out of that town centre. I want to assure you that so do I, so do the team. And I think what we want to do is to have an honest conversation about what does that mean at a time where there's some uncertainty in town centres, but equally the opportunity that can give. What we're going to do this evening is I want to introduce Paul McGarry, who's a Future Merton, who's mentioned earlier, and Tara Butler, who's the Deputy Head. Paul's going to run through a presentation, and then we'll be happy to take questions at the end of it. We'll do our best to answer those as openly and honestly as we can. If we can't, we'll say so, and if it's something that we can come back at the ranch to provide us that information, we'll do our utmost to do that. So we're very pleased to be here. We realise that we've got a room that's crossing the seas. There's a lot of people that are equally passionate about this town centre. So we're going to hand over to Paul, and look forward to the questions. James. Is that okay? Can you see the screen? Yeah. So
So as Jake just covered off, background to the master plan, it is about a strategy for growth. Not always particularly about promoting growth, it's actually about managing growth that's already happening. I'll let the master plan introduce you see present a vision for the future. Bear in mind that's into 2030s and 2040s.
Sorry, could you speak up? You're not speaking as loud.
Is that? Oh, that's it. Are we going good? So, the master plan is a strategy for managing growth, not just promoting growth. And there are real development pressures at Wimbledon right now which we are dealing with as a planning team. You're dealing with well as a community. You keep seeing planning applications pop up, you read about it in the Guardian, and then people wonder how do all these bits of the jigsaw fit together. So the benefit of having a plan is this, the council can get to start putting all these bits of the jigsaw together. And that's so, as a community, you have a bit more certainty about time planning. But it means us as the council officers and councillors can get more certainty to developers. Because there is development interest, there is investment, and that is good, but we do have to guide that investment and make sure it's the right investment. So, the presentation I'll try and keep to 10 minutes. I'll talk about the plan and policy, so it draws upon the neighbourhood plan earlier. I'll give you the highlights of the master plan so far. There's 140 pages, so I won't go through it all tonight, but I'll give you the headlines, and then I'll take the questions. No, you can see that, can't you? Well, this is online and it's on in the master plan anyway, but I'll give you a summary. As Rob touched on, planning policy status is important. This is what gets development. Helps us get good development, helps us kick out bad development. So the top line really is what's called statutory policies and effect planning law. Yeah, so the top line, that's statutory planning policies, so effect planning law. That's very powerful. What we've actually got is a national planning policy framework. That covers all of England. Deals with mostly big things like airports and motorways, but actually it's a presumption in favour of sustainable development. Now, for the government that's quite a move, because actually what it's saying is Britain has to develop the planning policy. Okay. Okay, right, I'll start at the top. Yeah. Okay, so planning policies. At national level, there's a presumption in favour of development, and that's quite a move in the planning system. That means councils have to, in every planning policy, be right, promote development. It's not about stopping development, it's about promoting it. And that raises a lot of questions about, okay, what does good look like? How do communities coalesce around a plan and actually support? So at the top level, we have London plan policies. That's also drafted for consultation, and you'll notice that Wimbledon is a growth area in the new draft London plan. So the council has to respond to that as well. And then we have local plan, which is local planning policies. So that covers the whole borough. So there isn't a specific design reference to Wimbledon that would apply on Northern, for example. So we've actually had this vacuum of not enough detail around planning policies in Wimbledon for the last 30 years perhaps. And I think what's come out of the workshops last year is the quality of new development of Wimbledon isn't probably what people want or aspire to. But without strong planning policies, the council hasn't really been able to fight them either. So the next tier down is where the Wimbledon Masterplan fits in. It's supplementary guidance to our existing policies. Part of the reason for that is to do a detailed plan, we'd have to have a ton of very expensive evidence, which we can't afford. But however, we're doing that anyway as part of the local plan consultation. So it's an interim guidance until we renew some planning policies. But that would also dovetail with the neighbourhood plan if that comes forward. So in fact, we can let them go for that. In effect, what that does, all of it is guiding towards influencing planning decisions, which your councillors and officers of the council use more help. So, the master plan area, if you're not already aware, it's not online. The green area is in effect the commercial park town centre. That is where the master plan extends to. We're not promoting development in the residential neighbourhoods. It's principally from the bottom of the Hill Road along to Merton Road. And what we've actually included is the railway lines in Donald Yards and north up to Gap Roads. Now, to some extent, that is a response to Crossrail 2. not that we are planning Crossrail to it, however we recognise that's an opportunity. And again, through the workshops, I haven't, sorry, I was looking at a pointer earlier. I can't jump that out. We'll start at the point. Someone can show you what I'm looking at. So this is Wimbledon Station in Central. We've got Wimbledon Hill Road, Broadway, that's Morrison's, and along the Broadway we've got the Leisure Centre, that's Merton Road.
No.
I mean, generally it's what you know Wimbledon Town Centre, so that's the area of focus. Now last year we had workshops with many residents, many of you were actually at them, with 300 people, and although that's not a full test of opinion of Wimbledon, it's enough of a sample to understand how people feel about the town centre today. So we asked people to stick on the map what people like, what they don't like, and that was about buildings and public spaces. And so this is the conclusion of all that. And what people are telling us is actually the town centre that is there today, people don't like that much. So red and orange is bad, green is good. Now it's a summarisation, but generally what we say is anything that's listed, anything in a conservation area, anything Victorian, is better cherished. Now we agree with that, because we're protecting the historic buildings. However, a lot of the red is actually a lot of what's been built in the 70s, 80s and 90s. A lot of it is office blocks, or brand new residential buildings. And actually that's what we, as Merton Council, believe, that's where the growth and redevelopment opportunities are. This plan isn't about wiping out the town centre. It's about picking those blocks which are 40 years old, which people said they don't like, and that's where we see the regeneration happening. Now that's quite huge because the ages of those buildings, the lease structures, commercial leases run in 10 years, a lot of those sites are coming off for development soon. So whether there's a plan or not, the council will have to deal with this, and we're trying to do it with a plan. So how about Wimbledon grow? It was touched on earlier. Wimbledon as a town centre, it does have residential neighbourhoods like the back gardens of commercial properties, or vice versa, commercial properties and back gardens. And that's because Wimbledon is actually a relatively new town. It's not a historic market town, thousands of years old, by Richmond. It was built because of a train station arrived here. And what you actually find is it's a bit of a one-street town. You've got Broadway. All the commercial activities are on the Broadway. With the development pressure, increasing jobs, increasing visitors, Wimbledon will have to go somewhere. It's the 2040s. And there's two ways: you go out or you go up. Now we don't going up to a crazy extent when we go from Wimbledon, up to have to have a measure of growth. But actually what we recognise is all that airspace above the train lines and all the ground crew land in the rail yards could be an opportunity for growth in the future. So what we said in the master plan is crucial to when it happens. We'll have to plan for that green area. But once Crossrail's done what it needs to do, that green area is now new neighbourhoods, potentially new neighbourhoods. So what the council put down as a marker to say, well, yeah, that's where we could grow in the 2030s and 2040s. But it's not here now, we just want to what are we doing there now. So with that, we have got the block plan. I appreciate the projector probably doesn't show us that well, but this is online. We've got a high resolution version on the website and a printed version in the library, if you want it. What we're trying to illustrate here is how the new town centre would actually fit in with the existing street structure and existing blocks within our residential neighbourhoods north and south. And principally, not every building here is brand new. And actually, just because it's in a master plan doesn't mean it will be developed. What we've done is shown guidance for if and when the landlord wants to come forward. This is the type and size of the building the council provides. There's a whole ton of detail after this, which we can't show, but that will come through as a when it's detail plan. But generally, we've got, I'll go from this way to that way. Wimbledon Hill Road, very handsome Victorian terraces. Not proposing to change them, we are proposing to enhance them. As you get further down, you've got St George's Road, the back of Deals. That is where the majority of the growth opportunity sits. every one of those buildings is built in the 70s onwards. A lot of them are coming forward through planning for redevelopment, but they're actually really big blocks. There's no route from Walk Road to St George's Roads. So what we've actually proposed there is the 4 little squares is to cut the size of the block up. So smaller scale, we get laneways and streetways through there. And that's a response to growth too, because if Wimbledon gets a bit busier, the Broadway can't take all the footfall. We had to create new streets, and that's what we tried to do in that project around St George's Road and Walking Road. Now again, this is supplementary to existing policies. We already have a tall building policy program, and it's adopted in 2010. And what it highlights is St George's Road and Walking Road is one of the areas where it's suitable to put tall buildings on the road. What that policy didn't say is how big. So we actually illustrated that.
Well, I'm on the microphone, it has to be much louder.
Okay? Right. Where was I? St George's.
What was the other end? Tall building policy.
Right, okay, tall building policy, 2010. Okay, St George's Road is next to Walker Road. Right here, I would assume all of you know your own town centre. So,
Do not get snippy, young man. Learn to use the microphone before you come to a public meeting.
right, I'm going to carry on with tall building policy, then there's other master plan details to get through. So, tall building policy is on the council's website, and it promotes St George's Road area as one of the areas which is suitable for tall buildings, because it's already commercial. It's not in the residential back gardens. The other part of that policy is around the YMCA. As I said, there are existing policies that we've illustrated in this plan.
Our assistant is with you. Would she mind standing on the platform and
Well, I'm his assistant. Thanks, Darcy. Right, so the question there was about, actually, can I take that at the end of the questions? There's a question about the why, but we'll take the question at the end. The target. Do I point out why? Taller. Yeah, I will get there. The presentation does deal with that question, so I'll get on to that. Is there any other landmark you want pointed out to orientate yourselves on that?
Sorry, it's not a landmark, but you're showing us something there when actually on the plan it shows you a 3D picture of all those buildings where you can actually see the height of the buildings. So that would be nice to see that.
So we've got a helicopter view.
Yes.
Helicopter in 2030. So what we've shown, this does help illustrate a good point. A lot of the Victorian terraces remain. So that's all the way up the hill and along the Broadway and around the theatre. So we're not proposing to rebuild everything, we're proposing to retain and enhance a lot of historic buildings. What we do see in this plan is where a lot of the more modern buildings were built. Those leases run out in the next decade. So that's where we anticipate new development happening. And that's centred on St George's, which is the cluster of 6 blocks, 5 years. And around the Morrison's car park, which is where you know the council owns, we're looking at plans for that. The bit about the station, that isn't an exact plan. It's more of a vision for how we might deal with the station when Crossrail 2 is ready to invest in it. The council's not going to build those buildings. We don't yet know what Crossrail 2 plan might be in terms of tunnels or whatever option. But there's a few principles for how the station could be better integrated with the town centre. So as we've shown, there's a much clearer connection around the old town hall into the station. Now, very convenient to the British Museum. You know the great court in the middle? You've got a round building, and then a square, and a glass roof. Our town hall is like 1/4 of that. And what a great space the British Museum has been in it. So why can't Wimbledon's shopping centre train station mash up be like that? So But we've dropped the principle in, obviously again we will design the station when we need to. Similarly, Morrison's Piazza development. In the workshops, the Piazza came up as a space where people like it because it is a public space. But as a public space you can't really use it. There's no benches. You have to spend money on it to be in it. And a lot of people said the path between Morrison's and the Odeon is a bit of winter. So it's not a street, it's not a laneway, it's a winter. So again, in the plans around the Piazza, we're working with the owner there to see actually what's their investment plan for the next decade. So we're showing that actually Wimbledon gets rid of streets and lanes rather than big box retail. So that's essential area. I'll go on a bit, so I'm going to skip a couple of slides.
Sorry, when you're on that page, could you just say how high the St George's area buildings are and how high the St buildings are in your plans?
I've got a Belknap map coming up, so I'll highlight it on that, if that's okay. The master plan, we do also recognise how the pedestrians and cyclists get around town. Now, we don't have a traffic plan per se, but what we've actually highlighted is by dealing with some of the bigger blocks, we can encourage more laneways, more pedestrian routes across town. Now, principally that's the green routes, Tara, St George's again. Potentially a new public space on the bridge, but that's subject to Crossrail 2 or Network Rail investing in the station. And then further along, how perhaps Centre Court could go over the station to look at a retail offer and actually create bridge links across the tracks. So that's open space network. And again, there's examples internationally of laneways don't have to be dingy alleyways. They can be places where bars and restaurants and cafes spill their onto. They can be places for culture. And you know, St Mark's Place is an example of that next door. Sorry, heritage buildings. I'm not sure how clear this is to you, but basically Wimbledon Hill and Broadway, we've highlighted the areas where we want to retain and enhance the listed Victoria buildings. Actually, even if they're not listed, we still retain them. There's building enhancements on Queen's Road as well. Many of you know Queen's Road facades were protected when the Centre Court was built. Now that is a great addition to Wimbledon streetscape. But all the shops in Centre Court on the back of Queen's Road. All the windows have stickers, there's no shop front. So we think Centre Court could do a better job of actually helping Queen's Road. In terms of council investment, this is an example of Queen's Road curve. My team have been working with the landowners there the last 6 months. We've actually cleaned up and restored the Victorian terrace there. Not many people would have known it was a council because we finished it during election time. But just as an example, we used money from other developers who built Wimbledon, and we reinvested that money in the historic fabric. And that's something we want to do through the master plan going forward. And again, another example is Collingwood High Street before and after. Quite a drastic change. And that is the council, again, using developers' contributions, working collaboratively with landowners. It's hard to get 20 landowners to deal with. And actually using their shopfront design guides. So we have a design guide for good shopfronts. So we can encourage businesses to actually brand and promote themselves, probably more in a way that we want them to be. Because businesses have to respond to the local context. Building regs. This is a bit of a heat map, really. The redder it is, the taller it is. So, I'm trying to find the best way to describe this now. I'll start from Wimbledon Hill again and work along. Generally, when we see the Victorian terraces, we're keeping them the same as they are, so they're generally 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. That's Wimbledon Hill, along Broadway.
So is that business houses, or is that businesses?
That's businesses. So think Wimbledon Hill Road. Yeah. So that's so what we're saying here is that existing townscape stays. That's what shows in blue. And then we turn around the corner to Merton Road, to the leisure centre, past Polka, that's the same. The next level, which we call mid-rise, is 6, 7, maybe 8 stories. Now, a lot of that's focused on Walker Road and St George's. Great job. Now, 8 stories might sound big, but actually that's what's down now. So you get the Virgin Active building, which is the old telephone exchange. That's already 8 stories of Walker Road. We've then got blocks where the old community centre was, which the council owned, and the back end, the Sainsbury's and Ely's. That's actually quite low, but it's surrounded by 7 or 8 stories. So that's where we see that block building up to match the neighbours. So the light green there is 8. So the darker green is 8, the light green we're proposing 10. Now again, that is where it's office block facing office block. So we think that's the least sensitive place to put tall buildings. The next one back, these are the buildings that back onto the railway line. Now they're not immediately going to be redeveloped, but what we anticipate is if and when Crossrail invests in the station, you can imagine those office blocks right next to a major train station would want to reinvest and rebuild it. Now again, above a track, or behind the train track, is a decent place to put tall buildings because it's not affecting the historic landscape. On Alexandra Road. Yeah, so this looks in the master plan is trying to deal with the here and now planning issues, which is mostly design. Anything around the Crossrail 2 corridor, it really is into Crossrail 2 into detail, and we will work with them on that. So although we're suggesting that the station could build up, we don't exactly know what build until the 2030, 2040. You're right, those houses, they're safeguarded. I think safeguarded, part of safeguarded, if not, they're adjacent to it. It's an issue. So the question there was about residential properties in Alexandra back onto the station. These are the kind of details that come out in detailed plans. At the moment, the principal saying is the station to be built above. The exact height is all for consultation, that's why we're consulting.
In Consultation, we're showing this 2 up, 2 down terraced streets being extended with what is, this is an honest statement, between the online version and the hard copy version. I haven't been able to work out exactly what height you're proposing, but it seems to be 5 or 6 story buildings that you're proposing to extend 2 up, 2 down terraced streets.
So the bottom corner, that's all the Donald streets that back up to the Donald yards. And actually what we're saying is the Donald yards we would propose to change unless Crossrail 2 is going to change it. Target point to Donald yards. Now, Donald. So what we've proposed there is a way of stitching old and new together is to follow the same street pattern. So we've kept the ladder of streets. The building heights there we're proposing 4 stories. In the plan we've shown examples of 4-story Victorian style. Think happening about. Now again, this is where the master plan's flexible. We welcome people's views on that. Should the streets be extended? Should that site be isolated? Should it be lower where it touches existing houses and go bigger than the train line? All of that kind of flexibility is what we can, that's what we feedback we want to hear.
Just check one thing. I know we don't have the details of the Crossrail, but what you're assuming at the moment is that the railway line is the level that it is now. Marginally, of course, the railway line is such that it can't go across.
So the question here is Crossrail some floors at actual level? We haven't anticipated that in the master plan either way. We know there's multiple options. What we're showing is what might happen on track. Once we have clarity with Crossrail, we can detail it. This is more about a vision for the long term, and then a lot of detail happens.
Can I just ask, is that let's all finish, because I know everyone has lots of questions and it gets very emotive when we see these things, but I need to let the presentation finish and then we'll take questions fully at the end.
Thank you. So, we'll come back to building heights, no doubt, but that was the same helicopter image. That is to scale, it's not an actual 3D model, but it's cartooned up because we don't want to show you technically drawn buildings, because the intention is it's a vision, it's flexible. We're designed of a building model. Going on to building quality, this is my final section before over to questions. And looking at some of the development people didn't like, and this came through the workshop, so thank you everyone who helped us get to this point. We looked at how Wimbledon did already, how to stuff people like. And what we found is there is a bit of a hierarchy of building designs in Wimbledon, up until about the 50s, and then all eroded. Now that's common across every town centre in Britain. What you've got in Wimbledon is your big, civic, grand, important buildings are all white stone. So that's the station, Town Hall, some of the churches. The middle tier, we call Group 2, is where your kind of grand civic buildings, they were all red terracotta. So that's the theatre, the bank buildings, the police station, the old fire station, the library. And then you get your third tier, which is your general town centre buildings. They're all yellow brick with some white detailing. And that pattern is there, you can still see it at Wimbledon, but that quality has been eroded through time. So as part of the planning guidance we want to promote in the master plan is actually how do we get that Wimbledon's back into development. Now, we can't just rebuild Victorian town centres all the time, the scale doesn't work with redevelopment, but we've picked out some of the materials and design from other modern developments in London, which we think actually is that new DNA for Wimbledon. And again, as part of the consultations, we'd like the feedback on this. So there we've got top one's Finsbury Circus. I spoke about mid-rise. That's 7 stories. It's probably not 7 stories you imagine when you look at something like the YMCA. The one at the bottom's in Strand, Aldwych. That's a 9-story apartment block. But it doesn't look 9 because you get classical proportions. It's got a double height ground floor. It's got 4 floors in the middle, and then it's got 2 in the roof. And it actually has a roof. It's not flat. It has a roof and a skylight. So there are ways of dealing with design quality that respects historic building patterns, but also encourages growth. So that's examples. Again, that's a white stone group. We can then do modern versions of red brick, terracotta, and modern building yellow brick and green, like Wimbledon anyway. So we put these in as feelers just to see what you think and what you respond to. If not this, then what else? What else could the council do to promote better quality? We're interested in hearing that too. So before I was the voice, it is now question time. Jeremy, are you going to come here and do a couple of questions at a time rather than... Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, So before unfortunately, due to a leaky roof, we only have one mic. So what I'm going to try and do is put people out. I'll ask them to say a question, and then I will repeat the question from the top before the guys go on. So this lady here, straight ahead in the white top and glasses. So the question is, what has been done with the regeneration of Plough Lane, which is felt will be far more appropriate for high buildings and the regeneration of the town plan?
I'd love to say that it was a game of how we could balance development across the borough, but it just doesn't work that way. So it's not a question of can the development go in Plough Lane, which means that we won't develop in Wimbledon Town Centre. I can finish. The Council is obliged, Paul mentioned the National Planning Policy Framework, the London Plan, and indeed our own local plan. Those all have growth objectives in there, and what we have to do is respond to that. One of the key things is that we have to make sure that we can respond when planning applications come in. And part of the master plan, and the reason we're talking about heights and the DA and quality is we want to make sure that when applicants come in and speak to us, that there's a presumption in favour of development, and what we have to do is to make sure that that presumption results in good quality. So where height and growth can take place in Wimbledon Town Centre, it has to be judged on its own merits. And what we can't do is say that there's another part of the borough where growth is more appropriate, because the local plan already determines that growth is right in Wimbledon, and that's a part of our adopted planning policy.
So you're not looking at Plough Lane?
Plough Lane is being redeveloped, the stadium is, and the associated housing is being developed there, so it's happening as well as Wimbledon Town Centre.
Is it in tandem, or is it separate?
The local plan, the council's local plan looks at the borough as a whole and promotes development across the borough as a whole. So it's underway. There's about 700 residential units as well as the new football stadium there. That will happen as well as other parts of the borough, including Wimbledon. So it's not a case of the pace it goes at, it's when development comes forward, we're obliged to consider it.
Is it part of your plan?
The Wimbledon Town Centre? No, sorry, my apologies, I should have asked that straight on, so my apologies.
So I guess to clarify, there is a total council plan for across the whole of Merton, which would pick up Loud Lane. This is specific to the town centre, the master plan is.
Yes, about the housing, you haven't said anything about housing in the area that you delineated on the map, and especially will there be housing available for County Land Trust to use, and will there be housing that people can afford so that they can afford to work and live in central Wimbledon?
Thank you. On the issue of community land trust, the council doesn't actually own much land in Wimbledon. If a landowner wanted to provide a community land trust in Wimbledon, we support that. I'll be totally honest with you, this is an incredibly expensive part of London, and I very much doubt that they would. We're not particularly promoting housing in Wimbledon town centre. There's a lot of other space in the borough that's appropriate for housing, and there's very little parts of the borough that are appropriate for businesses. Council's policy is that it will support some residential development on upper floors, where it doesn't interfere with the existing town centre uses.
So again, just to clarify, so most of what we've been through today then, and the buildings, etc., are all commercial land in the majority of cases.
South Wimbledon Station and round there, what you've got to put up with that until they start building the Broadway and everything else. It's appalling.
So the question is that South Wimbledon Station sounds, it's not very popular. James, the master plan does go down that far. It doesn't quite get to the station though.
So what's going to be done about that in the
So I guess that gets picked up in the broader council plan rather than this specific bit. So a bit similar to Loud Lane. Do you want to comment at all on traffic management? I think just as a broader point, which would be helpful.
I appreciate that South Wimbledon Junction is something that keeps all of our inboxes busy. It's a very difficult one. It's one where we're looking at the options around that. It would require some serious buildings to be acquired. And actually, if you look at the mayor's transport strategy that the council is obliged to look at, we've got to look forward to 2040 when use of public transport, greater reliance on using our bikes and our feet and part of that. So there is a move which is not about increasing road capacity, it's about how we start taking cars off the road. South Wimbledon Junction is one that having to deal with how actual traffic flows is going to be a difficult one, and it's one that there's not an immediate answer I can give you in terms of actions we'll be taking on that one.
But there's also...
This is Wimbledon Town Centre, not South Wimbledon.
And just anything else to pick up on the traffic management around Wimbledon Town Centre? Because I'm sure that's going to be raised.
Yeah, so just in general, traffic in Wimbledon, and this came up in the workshops too, and the feedback we're getting, people would like to see less traffic in Wimbledon. There is a lot of suggestions for can we pedestrianise the Broadway, could we make it more pedestrian friendly or cycle friendly. Now there is a challenge with that which we don't yet know how to fully deal with, and it's Wimbledon Bridge. So Wimbledon Bridge is the only road crossing for about half a mile each way. So the bridge is the bottleneck. So the question is, do we build more bridges? Yes, we propose that in the master plan. However, we would need network rail or crossrail to fund that infrastructure. The council wouldn't build it, but we could work with partners to do that. So until a major bit of infrastructure goes in, we can't deal with Wimbledon Bridge. That stops pedestrianisation of the area outside the town hall. Because, I don't know if you know, outside Wilkinson's and the Prince of Wales Park, there's quite a steep camber on the road. So if you reverse the traffic flow there, buses and stuff might not get around it without a lot of expensive engineering. So we get the ambition, we'd like to do that too in terms of pedestrianisation. It's not yet achievable without a lot of big infrastructure.
So it was only... So the question again is back to traffic management and just asking if anything more creative could be done. I guess so the previous response was that under this plan the council don't envisage that unless a significant infrastructure happens, i.e. Crossrail 2. Is there anything else that you can add to that?
Yeah, so the suggestion there about splitting pedestrians and traffic. I grew up in the 1960s Newtown. I know the type of environments that kind of plan creates, and I would recommend that for local. It may deal with one problem, but it can create a whole lot of others. In terms of traffic management, we did a project in 2012 which actually widened the footpaths in Wimbledon and narrowed the roads, and we had to work with TfL to optimise all the traffic signals. So it's kind of as best we can get to the TfL at the moment. However, TfL do the Healthy Streets agenda, so we may be able to bid for future funding. What I'd like to do is, I want the feedback from the consultation we're getting now is quite pointed towards traffic. Now that gives the council a bit of a mandate to say actually build a project and look at traffic, but go and get funding. So hopefully something could work around that. But in terms of this plan, we haven't got a solution for you yet.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So the question is the YMCA, which is the building halfway down the road on the left, which is significantly taller than other buildings, and I think the description was it's hideous. I wouldn't care to comment. So if you could help just explain.
The YMCA, certainly not a jewel in the crown of Wimbledon, but I think it exemplifies what the sort of pressures we face when we're trying to create the opportunities within the town centre. We don't own the building, so it's going to be central that we can work with the owners and prospective developers on that. We don't have an application in for it. We were aware that there was a consultation a number of years ago. One of the crucial bits about this consultation, which I should say, please do, please the 6th of January, is about if growth is going to happen. And I think, as well as looking at the consultation document, I think it is important that the reference back to the policies of Wimbledon Town Centre to supplement that is going to be helpful to get that greater understanding of where growth can take place. But one of the determining factors that we need to get through this is we need to promote what good quality looks like. Now, there are lots of ways in which a good architecture can mitigate the impact of overlooking, etc. Some of those, as you see elsewhere in London, are going to what I would call some extreme examples, but nevertheless, there are ways of doing it. But I think that we don't have a live application, and what we need to make sure is that when we do consider an application, we've got the background policies to say we've got a damn good quality of speed that comes out of that. So one of the trade-offs is that you always have to say what makes the development happen. And the YMCA is not your conventional owner. It is not owned by a well-funded developer at this moment in time. And I think what we have to do is to be open to say what is the greater good for that site, if we come with an application to see whether or not the level, the amount of development is needed to support it. What we don't do is write a blank cheque and say 13 stories without any evidence as to why. But I think we have to be open that if an applicant comes in, such as the YMCA, and says actually we could do a much better job on this site, but here's the economics of it, I think we need to look at it and determine whether the balance is in favour of development to support the regeneration of that site rather than leaving it in the state it currently is.
Thank you. We'll go down the back bit, so very back, hand up.
My question is, how many businesses have failed in the centre of Wimbledon in the last 5 years?
So the question is how many businesses have failed.
But I'm going to follow up as well by saying, so what makes us think this is a commercial, not residential area?
So in terms of the question is, how many businesses have failed. I don't have an answer to that.
Well, actually, you should, because the Broadway is devoid of shops.
But so the reason I don't have an answer to that is I think we see change in China. We're not seeing a decline in town centre. There's always people coming in to invest. The reason the Wimbledon Town Centre is important to the council, it's our biggest town centre, but it's a growing business location anyway. Without this master plan, that is still happening. There's 15,000 jobs in the town centre. There's 15,000 jobs in the town centre. That is a busy place. Now, we are acutely aware that the town centre means something to the residents as well as people who work and spend their leisure time here. It has to meet everyone's needs. So the council's not trading off commercial for the interest of residents, but actually Wimbledon's a good town centre, and it's good for a number of factors. The working population here during the day spend their time and money at lunchtime, in the evenings. That keeps Wimbledon's economy going. Without that footfall, you wouldn't have as good a town centre as you've got as residents. Looking at the residential areas, they're really nice Victorian terraces all around the town centre. They're not high density areas. So there isn't the density around Wimbledon to sustain the town centre you've got without people working here and spending money. So the council recognises the balance of jobs and commercial versus residents. It all has to work together as a mix. But we promote employment because actually a lot of the redevelopments are already office blocks. We're just looking for better quality ones, a bit more interest in the street level.
Can you justify that last comment of yours?
Justify in terms of what?
How many people are residents as opposed to coming in to offices?
How many people are residents as opposed to coming into offices?
Oh, there's a question. Merton, we've got 200,000 residents in Merton. I don't know off the top of my head know what Wimbledon is, but I can find out. But the working population I do know is 15,000.
Yeah. So it's less than 10% of workers.
Isn't this about making our town more attractive and a better place to live? Stop arguing about being commercial. It has to blend together. And can I put a question forward? When are you going to engage more younger people? Because it's like Brexit. If you don't engage the right people, you'll end up with a town that is not for the future generation.
So the question is, when are you going to engage more younger people?
Yeah,
so
it's really important.
That's a great question, actually. I'll be blunt with you. Most of our planning responses are either from people like me, who are already involved and engaged in planning, or they're from people who are over 45. We really struggle to get people from under 45 to 18.
Because that's where you will get the correct feedback.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's a whole load of reasons for that, but that's why we are trying to work, well, everything from schools upwards, right the way through the next few months. So working with school councils, working with groups of young people outside the school system, and all the way up. So if you have any tips other than the usual, pass it on to your neighbours, try and get people to respond. You're right, we do have a real problem with the number of responses that come through from younger cohorts.
Thank you. And I guess we can all do something about that as well if we can try and involve younger people. So down the back left here. Yeah, no, it's you, standing again.
Hello, I live and work in Wimbledon and have for a long time, and I love it here, and I wouldn't mind commuting to West End for everything. But I do appreciate economics dictate that we do need to expand and we need to bring in more revenue from business and so forth. But it is also about the quality, and if we are expanding that greatly, what infrastructure is going to be in place for those new office workers and things? Where I work at the moment, I'm lucky I'm in the right place, but unfortunately there's nowhere to go to lunch. And I know you can say you go to a cafe. Most of the local cafes at the normal lunchtime periods are completely chock-a-block now. Yes, it might be good to get other things, but how about some outside space? Maybe when we're building these high-rises, we build terraces on the top. It might sound a bit outlandish, but we need outside space for people who are working. A lot of people don't even have a window in their offices. So somewhere they can go and sit outside, or maybe if they have to smoke, or there's an option other than being inside all the time. And some of these outdoor cafes have only got a limited number of tables outside, and they seem to be only for the smokers.
Thank you. So the question is about the infrastructure. If we're going to do so much office space, what are we doing about the infrastructure to help with that office space, and actually talking about can outdoor spaces and outdoor areas support that.
I think we share your view. When you reflect on the feedback we had from the workshops, an awful lot of that feedback was there's not that incidental open space in Wimbledon. And I can say that part of that is a consequence of sort of a one-street town developing up through the Victorian period, but sort of more importantly during the 60s and 70s. And during that period of time, that incidental open space wasn't as high up on the planning agenda as it probably should have been, and certainly not as high up on the agenda as it is today. And certainly, if you look at any major development of offices, making sure that those are good quality in terms of actual environment that people work in. But that important bit about the incidental open space in your town centre was a clear message that came through the workshops. And that's why we've identified in the Masterplan opportunities to make sure that that's part of what's delivered. The open space where you can take a sandwich instead of having to go to a cafe, a place where you can sit out, where you can have that opportunity to just take in the atmosphere. That's important. That's part of the quality agenda, and that's part of what we want to achieve through the master plan. And that says there's going to be some trade-offs in order to get that open space where currently there are buildings on. We need to be able to provide as part of that quid pro quo. That's why the master plan is a guidance document, and I think that kind of feedback on actually what's good for office workers is also good for the residents, because what you want is a quality of space. It shouldn't be that it's developed for people that come here to work. It should be just a damn good place and a good quality of environment. And one of the things that we want to sort of underpin is what came through the master plan is Wimbledon, the master plan workshops, is Wimbledon is not an area that people feel anything other than pride and feel glad to live here, but it doesn't have the quality perhaps that you would identify with an area such as this, and we want to address that in the master plan. So it's not just about the buildings and their heights, it's about the spaces between the buildings. We talked about the laneways, we talked about the putting in green space. That can be a ground level. It can also be very much a vogue for putting it in within buildings. And we need to make sure that we state that loudly and clearly so that when developers and investors come in, we have a document to point to that says this is part of what you're going to be required to do if you want to come and invest in Wimbledon Town Centre.
I'm going to sort of pick up on a couple of points that people have already made, and I just want to go back to right the basics. There is so much emphasis on office space. I think that the plan is short on any evidence as to why that is required. We all understand that things have to change, but we're looking at exponential increases in office space. I work for a company where a few years ago I had to go to my office every day. I now work from home 3 days a week and work in the office one day. We're doing hot desking. We're talking about a future-proof plan here, which is going to be fitting in with modern ways of working, and office space is not what is needed. What I expect I'm truly skeptic, and I hate to say this, but based on previous experience, I hate to say it, but when I look at the plan, I feel that Merton Council has said, right, we're going to have a metropolitan area. We don't care that in the Mayor's draft London plan, Wimbledon is not even identified as a metropolitan area, but Merton Council wants it to be a metropolitan area. Call me cynical, but I wonder if it means that there'll be a lot of budget money coming into Merton Council to fund the rest of the borough, and they don't care what Wimbledon Town Centre looks like, in my view. They want the money in the coffers. I want to see the evidence. Where is the need for this huge increase in office space? I think we're not future-proofing it. I also think there are other ways of being clever and getting people to come here and spend money. We've got the Wimbledon connection. As a resident here, I think that's kind of not a major thing, the tennis, but the sense of quality and a destination is, and we're already seeing lots of hotel applications. Why not make Wimbledon unique, having independent shops, high-quality restaurants, high-quality residential, and being a destination rather than just an office block?
one by one. So first of all, is Wimbledon really a metropolitan area?
So in terms of London Plan designations, no, we're not a metropolitan centre. However, we are already at the high end of what a major centre is, and the reason we suggested metropolitan in the master plan was, fast forward to 2040, with that amount of growth and development, we probably would be a metropolitan centre in terms of function, but also in terms of international reputation and with a better quality we want to provide. So that's why it's in there as a suggestion. I hope you're right in that response, because it's cracking. In terms of evidence for offices, you're right, it has changed, but it's not evaporated. The days of companies wanting the whole building to themselves has gone. What we're seeing is a lot of businesses already in Wimbledon expanding one extra floor here and there, but the flexibility in the current buildings isn't there. So what we're losing people. Wimbledon is about to move out down to Tolworth. So what is in demand is more flexible workspace, touchdown space, WeWork. Even people who work from home might not want to work from home all the time, but you might want a local desk. So Wimbledon does that here. So the jobs market is changing. I accept the point, it's not big grand office blocks as it was before, but a different type of workspace is needed. Even for maker spaces, workshops, architect studios, all of that is still workspace. It doesn't have to be office blocks. Final point, in terms of independent business. Although the master plan is focused on commercial buildings, the one thing we do want to change is what you experience now if you walk down St George's Road. You've got car park grills at eye level. Those office blocks don't touch the pavement. What we want to do in any redevelopment is promote that the ground floor of any new building is not office, but shops or bar, restaurant, something that's active that us as a community can use. You don't have to work in the building to use it. Now, in terms of retail, Wimbledon's kind of full up in terms of retail, and that's part of its problem. Centre Court isn't that huge, so therefore a lot of national chains that would want a bigger unit end up taking up units in Victoria buildings, and that then locks out independence. So we have to create a new pipeline, a new commercial retail space, and retail is changing dramatically anyway, so we have to be flexible enough in whatever buildings we design to accommodate any change. Part of the problem now is everything's on one use. You have an office block, a shop. We have to have mixed-use buildings to be sustainable for the future.
So we probably have time for a couple more questions. Is there any script in there?
Yeah, I was just going to build on the last question, which is that there are 15,000 people coming into Wimbledon to work each day. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what is the projection of the number, how many thousand people are you expected to encourage into Wimbledon with the new office buildings? Because I'm thinking, is this what we want? Tens of thousands more people crowding into Wimbledon on congested roads and a crossrail too that we don't even know is going to happen yet and probably won't.
So the question is, if the current figure around people coming into work in Wimbledon today in commercial use is about 15,000, what is the future prediction in terms of number of people to use all this office space?
I'm going to put an jump just to highlight the point better. So we haven't actually put numbers in the master plan yet because it's for consultation and we're only going to edit it after consultation. But the main blocks there around St George's and Harfield Road, we designed them on 3D models, so we got the square meterage of what's in that drawing. What we've actually done is the Treasury have got a formula for however much square metres you build equals a number of jobs. It's a formula, it's not an exact science. This scale of growth adds another about 8,000 jobs in Wimbledon over the next 15-20 years. So
how many?
So it's a 50% increase over the next 15 years. Now the other thing about people travelling, a lot of people working in Wimbledon are already residents. It's not everyone, not 50,000 people coming in, but a lot of people who live in Wimbledon travel out as well. Now this helps the public transport system where it encourages two-way traffic, if you like. In modern rush hour, if you go to Waterloo, it's busy. It's dead coming the other way. So actually we might want to encourage people to do reverse commute and work in Wimbledon for the quality of environment and experience and easier commute policies to promote local jobs. The borough's getting busier. We've got a housing target. A lot of people will be living in Merton. Wimbledon is an attractive place to work for people across Merton. So it says a number of markets, but the number was 8,000, subject to change.
Thank you. Probably there's one time for one final question.
Hi, I quite like your plan, and I'm actually less than 45 and 44, so the one question I have is, obviously the council only curated it, as you said, you don't own the building. The one building I'd love you to own is the YMCA, which is in receivership for the last 10 years. It's such an important building. Is that something you tried to buy? I know you're going to say the council have no money, but every other council borrowing money in PWLB at very cheap interest rates. And it is possibly the most important building that will be developed in Wimbledon, because Crossroad 2, as people said, might not happen. So is that something the property team of the council have considered, or is it a different team entirely?
So the question is YMCA, and could the council buy it to help regenerate?
The controllers.
Well, the answer is no. We haven't looked at it. The objectives is to try and get quality development coming through from the existing owners. And I'm going to take your point that they don't have deep pockets, and we need to make sure that we work with them to get a good quality development. And I think it exemplifies that the planning system has many tools, but actually the promotion of development is really through putting out good quality plans that control the development rather than local government stepping in to take over the development itself. Yes, financially it's not something that would be straightforward or easy at this point, even allowing for the public lands workload. But I think what we want to do is sweat conversations with the YMCA to get the quality coming through from them rather than us taking over the job as developer.
Thank you. So, unfortunately, we probably are time up. As we clean up, I'm sure there will be people around here if you would like to quickly ask any final questions. So, just as a bit of a reminder, Friends of Wimbledon are a completely independent body of local residents who are as concerned as everybody in the room is about ensuring that Wimbledon continues to be a great place. So, if you haven't joined and you want to register, you can either do so at the back of the room or online on our website. And indeed the same thing for the neighbourhood plan. I guess tonight though it was all about trying to help inform everybody, and what we should really be doing though is each person independently responding to the master plan. And if we don't do that, the council will never hear, so you really do have personal ownership to make that happen. Put the energy that we heard tonight into responding and giving your views. We will circulate a note afterwards, giving some of our views more broadly. I mean, there won't be specific, there will be more as we can as we try to represent everybody. And also, I think an ask is, you talk about young people, you talk about involving other people. If everybody tonight walked away and left between 5 and 10 people know about this and got those people to respond, well then actually we would really have a real groundswell. And actually the people of Wimbledon will have a voice in the master plan going forward. And finally, I guess a few thank yous. So thank you to Paul, Tara and James for speaking to us. Thank you to Gay and to Rob for giving us an update. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who did distribute the leaflets. So actually, it's a tireless effort for people to do that on a monthly basis. And everybody here knows that the meeting was on and gives them information in advance. And then finally, I guess a huge thank you to you all for coming and for participating and kind of showing the great passion and energy around Wimbledon's future. So please go online and fill out the form.